Hello, my name is Ursula Chiswick and I am a pharmacist. Thank you for taking an interest in this unique topic and taking the time to learn with me today. I'm here to present a fascinating continuing education program that I hope you will find equally interesting. The title of this program is Medication Adherence, a unique insight into the veterinary pharmacy world. Medication adherence refers to whether patients take their medication as prescribed, as well as whether they continue to take a prescribed medication for the duration of therapy. Sometimes that means an acute course of medication to treat perhaps an acute infection, and sometimes that means long-term therapy to treat chronic illness. Either way, medication non-adherence is a growing concern. In the case of animal patients, successful veterinary treatment of animals requires owner adherence with a prescribed treatment plan. While duration and frequency of the treatment do influence adherence to treatment, so does the ease of administration. How easy or how difficult it is to medicate a pet most frequently revolves around the palatability and the acceptability of the medication dosage form. That is what I'm hoping my program today will help you understand. This may be outside of your typical pharmacy experience, but hopefully you'll learn something new and gain a new perspective on the growing world of animal patients. Let's get started. There are 6 primary objectives that I will be covering during today's lesson. I will be reviewing medication adherence issues related to animal patients, including the reasons and consequences of non-adherence. I will provide a brief overview of veterinary pharmacy regulations that should help you understand the landscape of veterinary pharmacy as it relates to your practice. I think it will be helpful to address the species-specific characteristics and preferences that impact medication adherence. And of course, it'll be interesting for us to identify the most popular pets in the US and settle the age-old debate between dog lovers and cat lovers. We will also explore the physiology of taste and taste preferences by species from an evolutionary standpoint. And finally, we will discuss options available to address the barriers and struggles of medication administration. Did you know that more than 11 million US households adopted or purchased a pet during the COVID-19 pandemic? While kids were remote learning and parents were working from home, it was an opportune time to welcome a pet into the household, and the US did exactly that. In addition to the enjoyment pets provide, families took advantage of the additional health benefits, including reduced feelings of loneliness and stress, increased opportunities for exercise and outdoor activities, and improved opportunities for social connection. This was especially important during the uncertain times and prolonged isolation of quarantine. According to the ASPCA, close to 1 in 5 households acquired a cat or dog since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. Today, a staggering 70% of US households are identified as pet owners. And of course, all of those dogs, cats, birds, and iguanas need medicine just like humans do. Getting those pets to take medication can be quite challenging. With the growing veterinary market, there's a growing veterinary focus on the medication needs of our beloved pets. If you haven't noticed already, you are likely to notice many more pet prescriptions come across your pharmacy counter soon. That is also why you might notice there are many more educational programs focused on anatomy and physiology of animal patients, common veterinary health conditions, or regulatory issues and ethical considerations revolving around animals. However, the purpose of this specific program is to focus on veterinary medication adherence and highlight the fact that whether you're talking about human patients or animal patients, drugs don't work in patients who don't take them. This CE will focus on animals identified as pets or companion animals, including dogs, cats, birds, and reptiles or exotics. Companion animals are classified as non-food producing animals, meaning they are animals that are fed, bred, or kept, but they are not used for human consumption. We will not be addressing animals categorized as food-producing animals or performance animals in this course. Production animals include animals like cattle, sheep, and poultry, while horses are a perfect example of performance animals. For obvious reasons, food-producing animals and performance animals are subject to a greater degree of governmental regulation and oversight. During today's program, we are most interested in companion animals, since retail and community pharmacies are most likely to encounter pet owners and the needs of their pet companions. As I mentioned earlier, medication adherence is not isolated to human patients, and it is just as important for animal patients to receive proper medication and continue to take the medication as prescribed. Medications that are refused, expectorated, or regurgitated prevent pets from getting better. The problem is that pets of all species often resist or refuse medicine delivered in tablet or capsule form. When pets resist, pet owners often become frustrated with administering medication and simply give up. The biggest issue is that owner compliance or adherence to treatment recommendations determines the success of veterinary treatment. Yet experience and research has identified that 90% of cat owners, 70% of dog owners, and 95% of avian and exotic pet owners struggle to medicate their pets. That is a lot of struggle. Why is this important? Because non-adherence has consequences. I'm sure you're aware that when humans are non-adherent, there are many consequences, including prolonged or recurring illness, worsening condition, increased healthcare costs, stress, maybe even death. While the reasons for non-adherence between humans and animals may differ, the consequences could be very much the same. According to the American Animal Hospital Association, or AAHA, results of a veterinary medicine study reported an overall adherence rate of 64%, some results as low as 20 to 30% for certain treatments. Another interesting thing to mention is the parallel between parents or caregivers administering medication to their children, much like pet owners administering medication to their pets or pet children. Successful treatment relies on and depends on a third party or a caregiver adhering or complying with a prescribed therapeutic regimen. Treatments usually require significant effort on the part of the parent or owner. So if the owner is not fully convinced that the treatment will lead to a successful outcome, or if the treatment is too difficult to administer or causes too much distress to the pet or the pet owner, non-adherence is often inevitable. Adherence to a prescribed therapeutic regimen is a critical factor for achieving medication effectiveness and therefore treatment success. But if the process is difficult, and if the pet struggles and refuses, this often leads to missed doses or halting the medication altogether. Recognizing the obstacles and understanding the options available to help pet parents medicate their pets successfully is important. The medication struggle is real. So what do we need to think about, and how can we address these medication administration hurdles? To make life easier for the pet and pet owner, we must identify the issues and then adjust accordingly to accommodate the patient's specific needs. For instance, is it the dosage form? Is the tablet too big and difficult to swallow for a tiny bird? Is it the dosage strength? Is the current commercially available dosage too high for the needs of a pocket pet? Or maybe even too low for a Great Dane? Is the bitter taste or foul smell a deterrent? This is when compounding or customizing a medication for a unique patient becomes an opportunity. According to the FDA, animal drug compounding is generally a practice in which state-licensed pharmacists or state-licensed veterinarians combine, mix, or alter ingredients of a drug to create a medication tailored to the needs of an individual patient. While we are not going to dig deep into the regulatory and legal implications of animal medications and compounding in this program, I think it is important for you to understand one crucial thing. Regardless of the regulatory body involved and their specific oversight, recognize that collectively their single goal is to ensure that medications are proven safe and effective. And while the industry recognizes the needs and goal of customizing medications for animal patients, best practice standards and rules must be followed to ensure that nothing compromises an animal patient's health or safety. There are three primary U.S. regulatory agencies that regulate veterinary products, including the Food and Drug Administration, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Environmental Protection Agency. Animal drugs, like human drugs, are regulated by the FDA. The specific division of the FDA is the Center for Veterinary Medicine. You might be more familiar with the USDA when it comes to the grocery store, but the USDA is responsible for regulating all veterinary biologics, including vaccines. The specific division is the USDA CVB, or Center for Veterinary Biologics. And veterinary products that are routinely used to control fleas and ticks, like Frontline, NexGard, Seresto, and comparable products, actually fall under the jurisdiction of the EPA. There are several other regulatory players involved, including the Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, that enforces animal prescriptions for controlled substances, much like they do for human controlled substances. The USP, an independent, scientific, nonprofit organization whose mission is to improve global health through public standards and related programs to ensure the quality, safety, and benefit of medicines. And finally, each state has their own Board of Pharmacy and Veterinary Medical Board that also play a role in the oversight of safe and effective medication prescribing, dispensing, and compounding for animal patients. Considering you work in a pharmacy, I'm sure that you already know that drugs that are approved by the FDA must demonstrate safety and efficacy, their labels must be approved by the FDA, and their manufacturing facilities must meet certain FDA specifications like GMP, good manufacturing practice. But what happens if the FDA-approved medication available is inadequate or inappropriate for your unique patient? According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, or AVMA, compounded medications are modified versions of FDA-approved products that you would otherwise buy at a store or pharmacy. For obvious reasons, prescribing and dispensing drugs that are FDA approved is the preference. However, compounding modified versions of FDA-approved medication is sometimes warranted. Compounding for non-food animals may be necessary when FDA-approved drugs need to be modified, either through flavoring, diluting, or altering of the dosage form to adequately treat the patient. Pharmacy compounding for animal patients allows for customizing the dosage or strength of a medication, creating the dosage form of choice, and even adding flavor to a medication to make it more appealing and palatable. Compounding allows pharmacies to make drugs prescribed by doctors for specific patients that can't be met by commercially available drugs. Now that we have addressed the who and the what, let's take a deep dive into the why. People love their pets. You may be one of the many Americans that think of pets as members of their extended family. According to an AP PetSide poll, 50% of American pet owners consider their pets to be as much a part of the family as any person in the household. It is no wonder that when our pets get sick, we rush to the veterinarian, concerned about our pet's health and hopeful for a quick recovery. So who are these extended family members? What are the most popular pets in the United States? Dogs are the most popular household pet in America, followed closely by cats, then fish, then birds, then reptiles. To give you a little perspective, there are 76 million pet dogs in the country, cared for by 48 million households. There are 58 million cats in about 31 million households. There are 20.6 million birds and 9.4 million reptiles owned as pets across the U.S. Here's an interesting animal fact. States with large rural areas tend to have the highest rate of pet ownership. You are likely to find more dog owners in warm states like Texas and more cats in colder states like Maine and Washington. Seems logical to me. Another interesting statistic is that according to the AVMA, Wyoming and West Virginia have the highest rate of pet ownership. Another AP PetSide poll reports that roughly 80% of pet owners take their pet children to a vet annually. And what happens once they take their sick pet to the veterinarian? The challenge of medication. Administering medication properly and ensuring the pet gets what they are prescribed is very important for the pet's recovery and health. But getting pets to take their medicine is no easy task. This is especially true for cats, small dogs, and pocket pets. The following American Pet Products Association National Pet Survey depicts the percentage of pets given medication in a given year. Take a look at the number of dogs, cats, birds, small animals, and reptiles that are administered medication annually. More than half of dog owners and cat owners will be required to administer medications to their pets. And as we have already discussed, that means that more than half of the dog owners and cat owners will be struggling to medicate their pets. Why does it have to be so difficult? Obviously, you cannot reason or rationalize the why with your beloved pet. They won't understand if you simply try to explain to them that this is for their own health or for their own benefit. What the pet does know is that something unfamiliar and probably disgusting is being force-fed to them by someone they trust and love. This struggle often leads to stress and distrust of the caregiver, which is difficult for both the pet and the owner. This frustrating scenario helps explain why the practice of pharmacy compounding is becoming a popular solution to such veterinary problems. I'm sure all of you that have pets at home have tried these traditional home remedies. Coating a tablet with peanut butter, hiding the medication in a slice of cheese or a pill pocket, trying to mix the medication with wet food. While these typical solutions may work, they may or may not be appropriate for pets with certain medical conditions. And of course, once a pet gets savvy to what's hiding in that cheese or pill pocket, we all know they're going to start eating around it. And we're back to square one. So I'm hoping that by now the wheels are turning in your mind and you're starting to understand that a better option to consider would be customizing medications in animal-friendly formats and flavors to facilitate easier administration to animals and eliminate negative contact experiences for owners and their pets. And we all know that one size does not fit all. This is especially true for animals. When we're talking about animals, you need to consider the fact that there's an extreme variety of animal patients. Species ranging from rodents to reptiles, domestic cats and dogs of different breeds and sizes. And they all have different GI transit times, circulatory systems, heart rates, temperature, drug distribution, and even taste preferences that can all impact medication. You might notice that there are many commercially available medications in the human world where dosing can be adjusted milligrams per kilogram of weight. But many medications that are intended for the veterinary world must be compounded to address all the unique characteristics and differences of an animal patient. Many differences exist between the anatomies and flavor perceptions and preferences of humans and their pet counterparts. In fact, many differences exist between the anatomies and flavor perceptions and preferences of different animal species. Let's talk about these differences. I'm sure all of you know the stereotype that cats are considered finicky. They are very discriminating about what they eat, and therefore they are often identified as more difficult to medicate. Dogs, on the other hand, are considered opportunistic. Basically, they will eat anything. Some would even eat the outer packaging of a medication. Tricking dogs by hiding tablets or capsules in peanut butter and cheese may work for the average dog, but not always. I'd like to go species by species and talk a little bit more about each animal's sense of taste. Dogs have approximately 1,700 taste buds, and that's a fraction of the human taste bud count at 10,000. However, a dog's sense of smell is up to 1 million times stronger than ours. Dogs are considered omnivores, which means they will eat foods of plant and animal origin. Like humans, dogs can perceive the 5 basic tastes, including sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. However, considering they have fewer taste buds, they will experience these sensations on a diffuse scale. Dogs rely on scent to gather information about their environment, and that includes the food you pour into their bowl or the medicines you try to administer. Their decision to eat something comes down to whether the scent is tempting or whether there's something off that makes them refuse. Basically, if something smells good to a dog, it's going to taste good to a dog. That is also why dogs are more interested in foods that smell stronger, such as canned wet food versus dry food. Canned foods are often more aromatic and therefore more enticing. A cat's sense of taste is much less intricate than that of humans and dogs. Cats have only 470 taste buds, and they are considered obligate carnivores. This means that their diet requires nutrients entirely dependent on meat. As a matter of fact, cats are taste blind to sweets. Since they don't need carbohydrates in their diet, they have no need to detect sweet taste and subsequently lack a sweetness receptor in their brain that would even enable them to recognize a sweet taste. Through evolution, they have developed a greater ability to detect bitter taste, which likely explains why they are particularly sensitive to bitter tasting medication. Despite having fewer taste buds, cats are still able to perceive sour, bitter, salty, and umami flavors. And they still maintain a highly acute sense of smell. A bird's sense of taste and the number of taste buds vary from less than 50 up to 500 taste buds, and that depends on the species. For example, a chicken has around 24 taste buds, whereas a parrot could have anywhere between 300 to 400. The fact that birds have far fewer taste buds than humans doesn't necessarily mean their sense of taste is crude. It is just not as well refined. Birds can perceive sweet, sour, and bitter tastes, but their preference has a lot to do with their diet. A bird that lives on nectar and fruit will prefer sweet taste, but sweet taste will have less appeal to grain eaters. The perception of bitter taste, however, is fundamental in all birds to help them recognize dietary toxins in potential food sources. This also sheds light on why birds might equate a bitter tasting medicine with a potential bitter toxin. A reptile's sense of taste is completely different than the species thus far discussed. Reptiles such as snakes and lizards use their tongue to detect taste and smell chemicals, not so much by the actual lingual taste buds, but by transporting these molecules into the pit of their mouth, where there is a specialized chemically sensitive organ called Jacobson's organ that converts taste into smell. In humans, smell often works in conjunction with our sense of taste, but they are still identified as two distinct senses. In lizards, taste and smell are so interrelated that the line between the two senses is blurred, creating one. Essentially, lizards and snakes smell and thereby taste by flicking their tongues out and collecting scent particles. You might think of this as tasting the air around them. I thought the following diagram would be interesting to help you visualize the relative scale of taste bud density across species. As you can see, humans fall somewhere in the middle. Apparently, cows and pigs have more discriminating palates than we do. And to think catfish have over 175,000 taste buds. That's because they have taste buds all over their body and a high concentration of taste buds on their whiskers. I guess you learn something new every day. Now that we've spent some time discussing differences among the species, I'd like to address what they clearly have in common. It seems that regardless of the animal species, one thing remains the same. Scent or smell plays an integral role in their willingness to accept food, and of course, the same would hold true for medication. This would be a good time to pivot a little bit and talk about the physiology of taste and dig deeper into taste from an evolutionary standpoint. There are 5 basic taste categories that we are familiar with as humans. They include sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. As we already discussed, most of the animal species are capable of perceiving some, if not all of the taste categories to some degree. This slide offers a great visual representation of what each taste perception signifies. You can use this quick and easy outline for future reference. In the next slide, we will address what each taste perception signifies one by one. Sweet taste has always been associated with fast energy, replenishment of energy stores in the body, and providing the energy necessary for fight or flight response in the presence of danger. Think about a time when you grabbed a candy bar for that quick jolt of energy. The caloric intake associated with sweets and carbohydrates also helps prevent us from becoming malnourished. Sour taste helps us to evaluate whether a food is good or bad. Think about the smell of sour or spoiled milk. Eating acids like the ones found in citrus fruits are usually pleasurable in small quantities, but not so pleasurable in large quantities. Think about that puckering sensation you feel when you eat a whole lemon wedge. Sodium, which is associated with that salty taste, helps regulate ion and water homeostasis in the body. Think about that craving for potato chips or popcorn while you're watching TV. We also typically enjoy salt in small quantities, but not in large quantities, since it's our body's way of signaling that too much salt at one time can be dangerous. Bitterness has always been a significant marker for toxins or poisons, so we naturally reject them. Our body is trying to protect itself from harm. It is no wonder that bitter-tasting medicines are typically refused. The problem is that from an evolutionary standpoint, bitter equates to toxic, but in the case of medication, bitter could mean beneficial, yet our bodies and brains don't know the difference. Finally, a taste you may or may not be familiar with is umami, or a sense of savory flavor. Umami is believed to be a signal for one of the most important and fundamental parts of nutrition, and that is protein and amino acid. Amino acids and proteins are considered the building blocks of life. Think of a savory bowl of chicken soup that helps restore our health. Considering the evolutionary appeal of sweet taste and umami taste, wouldn't it be great if pharmaceutical ingredients tasted sweet or savory? The problem is they don't. Many active pharmaceutical ingredients taste bitter and therefore are rejected by patients. While some tablets and capsules have the advantage of masking or encapsulating bitter taste, what happens if the animal cannot or will not swallow them? The first thing to consider is converting the dosage form to a more animal-friendly format, like a topical preparation or transdermal gel, or an oral suspension or solution, maybe even an oral spray or sublingual drops. The second thing would be to ensure that the medication tastes less bitter by developing a more favorable sweet or savory option. Creating a medication whose flavor profile aligns with something familiar to an animal's natural diet or is favorable and appealing to a particular species is a more reliable way to administer a necessary medication and ensure acceptance. What type of medication are we talking about? This is a good time to give you a little overview of commonly prescribed and dispensed medications by species. For dogs, the top medications you might recognize include metronidazole, doxycycline, gabapentin, and enrofloxacin. Metronidazole is a strong antibiotic primarily used as an antidiarrheal to treat inflammation of the large intestine. Doxycycline is a broad-spectrum tetracycline antibiotic used to treat an existing infection or as a precaution against a secondary bacterial infection. Gabapentin is most commonly prescribed to treat dogs suffering from chronic pain associated with conditions like arthritis or cancer. In addition to being used to treat chronic pain, gabapentin is also a popular drug of choice for epilepsy in dogs or dogs who suffer from high anxiety. Enrofloxacin is a fluoroquinolone antibiotic used to treat bacterial infections. For cats, you are likely to see prescriptions for medications like methimazole, prednisolone, gabapentin, metronidazole, or cephalexin. Methimazole is an antithyroid medication used to treat hyperthyroidism in cats. Prednisolone is a glucocorticoid medication that is prescribed for many uses, including the reduction of inflammation, suppression of the immune system, or treating some types of cancer. Like dogs, gabapentin is an anticonvulsant and analgesic drug used to treat chronic pain, seizures, and anxiety in cats. Metronidazole, as mentioned before, is used primarily as an antidiarrheal medication. It's interesting to note that metronidazole has a very bitter taste and often causes excessive salivation, drooling, gagging, or frothing at the mouth, especially in cats. Cephalexin can be useful to help treat infections of the skin, respiratory tract, and urinary tract. Enrofloxacin, doxycycline, and sulfatrim are commonly dispensed to birds as well as reptiles and exotics. As previously mentioned, enrofloxacin, brand name Baytril, is a fluoroquinolone antibiotic used to treat bacterial infections. Doxycycline is an effective treatment for systemic and local infections, and sulfatrim is a combination of two antibiotics used to treat a wide variety of bacterial infections. The same three medications are listed here as in the previous slide. They are commonly dispensed medications for reptiles and exotics as well. What you will notice is that some medications were repeated across species and some were more unique, but all of them should be somewhat familiar to you through your practice in pharmacy. to revisit something that we discussed earlier in the lesson. While most of these medications are commercially available and FDA approved, the fact that the animal species widely vary and each animal patient's unique needs vary will likely result in some compounded formulation of these medications. So, if we are going to customize these medications, how should they taste to maximize palatability, appeal, and adherence? Knowing what we know about dogs and their penchant for aromatic flavors, it's not surprising that flavors like chicken, bacon, beef, and peanut butter are appealing to dogs. You will notice that many pet products in the market, like dog treats and dog foods, incorporate these enticing flavors for this exact reason. Now knowing that cats are obligate carnivores and have no need, interest, or capacity to taste sweet flavors, it makes perfect sense that tuna, chicken, salmon, and beef are natural taste preferences. Since so many birds live off of nectar and fruits, it is no wonder they prefer flavors like banana, cherry, and apple. Reptiles and exotics seem to have a broader scope of taste preferences, ranging from savory to sweet, including bacon, banana, grape, watermelon, and apple. If we now piece everything we learned together about the risks and consequences of non-adherence, the unique attributes and preferences of the different animal species, the inherent issue of bitter-tasting medication, and the subsequent medication administration struggles that plague pets and pet owners, we recognize that all of these factors play into a perfect storm. Medicating pets can cause major stress for pet owners, since many are unable to get their pets the medicine they need without a serious fight. Now you know that providing medicine in easy-to-swallow, tasty liquid form helps ensure easier medication administration and less stress come medicine time. And happier pets mean happier pet owners. Less stress and more quality time with healthier pets is a win-win for everyone. For so many of us, pets really are like members of our family. We want to be sure our pets are happy, healthy, and trust us. For a pet that refuses to take medication because of the dosage form or taste, compounding and custom flavoring is a wonderful solution. While cats may not like tablets or capsules, they do like the taste of tuna. Dogs might not appreciate a liquid being forced into their mouth, but they probably won't mind as much if it smells and tastes like savory bacon. Hopefully, through this program, you gain the knowledge and insight to offer solutions to struggling pet owners. Promoting medication adherence at your pharmacy will help animal patients get better faster, and pet owners will be grateful. I am sure that dogs, cats, birds, and reptiles would thank us if they could. This concludes this continuing education program. I'd like to leave you with the following quote. A kindly gesture bestowed by us on an animal arouses prodigies of understanding and gratitude. Thank you again for your time and attention today. I hope that you learned something new and will take this information back to your pharmacy practice. Don't forget to follow up with the continuing education follow-up questions to receive credit.